Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. Hey, I want to start this segment by first saying that it is being sponsored by the great patriots of Act 746. And here to talk a little bit about that, we have Misty Hampton Graham is with us. First time on the program. Misty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well, Misty, and I'm glad that you could come on, talk a little bit about the Patriots of Act 746, Act 746 in general. I'm sure many of you, I know I'm a member of the group as well. You guys want to get out there that we're a constitutional carry state, and we are able to really exercise our Second Amendment rights as was originally intended. Is that pretty accurate?
That's pretty close to it. Right now we have over 10,000 members, and most all of these are Arkansans. What we do, or our goal, is to ensure that every Arkansan has a means to defend their rights. And how we promote that is through education. We educate our neighbors, we educate ourselves, and most importantly, I think our children. I know that both of my children are members of the group, and that's all they hear me talk about is how to defend our rights. Samuel Adams said that no people will tamely surrender their liberties when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. But on the contrary, when a people become universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink underneath their own weight without the threat of foreign invaders. So how I got involved in this group was a couple years ago. There was this man, and he came into the place where I work. I run a restaurant, and he was open carrying, which was no big deal to me.
Yeah. Because
my husband open carries, I open carry. I see a lot of people open carrying, and I had no problem. Ordered his food, sat down. Later on, this woman comes up, and she is just irate. She's yelling at me. She wants to know why we allow this kind of thing to go on in our establishment. There's children in here. This is a family restaurant. And I said, ma'am, you need to calm down.
Oh,
this
wow.
is not against the law. Everything he's doing perfectly legal. But it scared her children, is what she said.
Yeah.
So I told her that I would check to make sure that there was no company policy against it, which I knew there wasn't. So I went and called my boss. And he said, no, there's no company policy. Just, explain to her that if she has a problem, that she can, call the police or call the office or whatever it is she wants to do. And so when I went back up there to tell her, she was gone. So I'm thinking it's over. But then she calls my main boss, the main office, and pitches a fit there. And it finally got up to the big boss, like the big corporate office. And how it got there was an article in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette that she had written. And it was entitled, "Open Carry is Scary."
Mm-hmm.
And it basically said that I told her that I had that I was carrying a weapon underneath my apron. Just a bunch of stuff that was never even said to begin with. But that how it was scary in a family restaurant for children to see this and
to see a gun,
and
to see
there
a
wasn't
weapon.
anybody scared. I've never had a problem.
Wow.
And yeah.
And so, did anything happen when it got up to corporate? Were you punished at all, or any consequences?
Well, I didn't know if there was going to be consequences. When it first went to the main office, they wanted me to write a statement out. So I wrote a statement, exactly what happened. I had everybody there actually write a statement because what she was saying I never said. And then when the article came out and it actually went to the big corporate office that was out of state, they wanted to know what was going on. So I sent them the statements, and I didn't get in trouble for it because I didn't do anything wrong. Well, a couple months later, that same man came in, open carrying, which still nobody has a problem with it. And I went out there and I introduced myself to him. And he said that he was a member of the Patriots Act 746. He handed me a card, and I was like, well, I didn't know anything about this act. I've never even heard of it. So he's like, join the group. And he's like, we have a meeting coming up. Come to the meeting. So I said, okay. So I joined the group, and I'm reading through this stuff. And these people are, intelligent. They're really motivated to help people defend their rights and to get people involved. Well, I went to this meeting in Alma, and they had candidates there for local offices, state offices, and they were actually asking these people questions. They were holding them accountable. I mean, sheriffs and stuff like that. I mean, they wanted to know what they thought, what they were going to do if something like this was to happen in their county. So it got me motivated to ask my sheriff what he thought about it. In fact, I actually threw a meeting 6 or 7 months after that, where
now, let me stop you there.
I invited all the candidates.
We're talking with Misty Hampton Graham, activist from Patriots of Act 746. Because, just to give a recap, Act 746, it was a law passed back in 2015. Back in 2013, rather. It was amazing. It was, decriminalized gun possession, essentially giving us open carry, constitutional carry.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing. And it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. It is a rainy Thursday here on August 31st. It is the last day of August. We're getting dangerously close to the end of summer here. A lot of people, I'm one of these guys that welcomes it, to be quite honest with you, because I just like change. I love whatever season I'm in the middle of. I can't wait until the next season. So I can't wait till fall right now. And then, in a couple of weeks, I won't be able to wait till winter, and it's just the way it goes. Anyway, welcome to the program. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. I wanted to give you a couple of updates, okay? First update is we here at Conduit Media, we are still compiling a montage of all of the impression of the sessions that we did. Now, for those of you that don't know, after the legislative session was over, we have conducted what it seems to me to be like countless interviews with different members of the Arkansas General Assembly about their impression of the session. Now, many of them are the more conservative, not all, but many of them are the more conservative members and their impression. And it's just amazing to go and listen to this as I'm editing all of this down to hear how similar, how familiar so much of what they said is wrong, what they didn't do, with kicking the can down the road, spending, raising taxes on the people. And when you hear this, it's going to be, I just want you to know, it's going to be the most powerful thing that is out there on Arkansas politics, maybe ever. It will completely and totally, once and for all, destroy the Republican Party establishment's narrative that everything is fine, that we're all Ronald Reagans down there, and we all believe in limiting government. I just wanted to give you that update. I am so encouraged by what it sounds like now, and I can't wait for the finished product because it's still not finished, because we actually have conducted more interviews since then. Anyway, I wanted to give you that quick update on that. Now, speaking of once and for all the narrative that everybody's a Ronald Reagan down there, let's turn to Republican State Senator Jake Files, shall we? Because we have an update on that. There is breaking news that has developed about Jake Files. Jesse Turner has tweeted this out. She is a reporter with KARK4 News. She tweets out a letter from the minority leader of the House of Representatives, Democrat State Representative David Whitaker. Now, he is the House Minority Leader from District 85. He is a Democrat. And he pens a letter to the Speaker of the House, Speaker Republican Jeremy Gillum. Dear Mr. Speaker, as I know you are aware, the FBI's ongoing investigation of Senator Jake Files has brought to light some disturbing facts about his actions. Let's stop right there. Some disturbing what? Facts. Do you know why State Representative David Whitaker, Democrat from District 85, House Minority Leader, feels the security, the assurance to use the word facts in this letter? Because it is a sworn affidavit from an FBI agent. Okay? That's why, something about a little confidence in something like this in the Justice Department, that's why he feels like it's okay for him to use the term facts. Okay? Jake Files has brought to light some disturbing facts about his actions while holding office. Many of our colleagues, listen, David Whitaker, many of our colleagues have begun raising questions about the rules for and process of moving forward with impeachment proceedings should it become necessary, noting that this is uncharted territory in Arkansas and that the FBI may be investigating others for similar misconduct. Can you please provide us with clarification and explanation of the newly adopted process for impeaching an elected official? Now, respectfully, David Whitaker, House Minority Leader. This is pretty significant news in the buildup. Let's just kind of go through this. On Sunday, news broke that we had Jake Files in a civil suit where he pled the Fifth Amendment when the bank was trying to figure out where his assets were. Okay? Then the very next day, we have this affidavit that is unsealed by the FBI, and we learned some new things about Senator Jake Files. But you see, what Senator Files said was that it's just an old story that had resurfaced. But that's not the case, because we never had anybody. We could speculate that $26,000 went directly to Files, but we never had anybody directly say that Deanna Gonzalez, what we found out that was new, his employee, Deanna Gonzalez, was instructed by him to open a bank account. Then Jake Files, which we did know this, he had the money sent to Deanna Gonzalez. He urged the city of Fort Smith to send them the money that they got from Little Rock. And then Deanna Gonzalez went to the bank, got the money, and gave it to Jake Files. We have check numbers, we have banking accounts, we have exact amounts, they match up. All of this was new. So it wasn't just the same old, okay? Now, since then, a couple of days went by after that was a huge story. Well, and it was huge on this program, maybe not so popular at the Arkansas Republican Party because they don't want him to resign. Asa Hutchinson doesn't want Jake Files to resign yet, and it's extremely embarrassing for them. We covered this all week. I know you've heard this, but this is extremely embarrassing for the party that's supposed to be about ethics, about having the moral high ground, to just let something like this go. And what is also weird is that the media here in Arkansas is protecting the Arkansas Republican Party. The media in Arkansas is protecting Jake Files in many regards. They only report when they have to report on it. They only report when they can't escape reporting on it, but they don't follow up with anything. They don't go around sticking microphones in Ace's face saying, why will Jake Files not resign? Why do you think he should resign? They won't get these people on record. They won't apply the pressure that I think if this was a Republican in Washington, D.C., the media would be all over this. I mean, what's going on here? It's so strange. A few days after that, the Democratic Party last week finally called for the resignation of Jake Files. They should have done so back in February or March, as I did, but they didn't. But they finally did last week, and that got a little bit of traction. But then it was basically dead. And we'll see. There may be stories written about this. I don't know. I don't know if this will go past a tweet or not. I will tell you this, though, to kind of, to kind of promote my theory on this whole situation about the media really being, they're dropping the ball on this. Now, kudos to Jessie Turner, okay? Kudos to Jessie Turner, because it's really good that she did this. I'm assuming that State Representative Whitaker reached out to her to give her this letter. I'm assuming. But if you'll go look, there's a tweet over here, Mark Mosley on Twitter is from KARK4 News, an executive producer, and he retweets Jessie Turner, which she has this breaking news of David Whitaker, and that he's asking Speaker Gillum about impeachment proceedings concerning Jake Files. What do we do next? Mark Mosley's tweet retweets it and comments, Senator Files is under FBI investigation for alleged misuse of general improvement funds. That's what he says. This is the executive producer for KARK4 News. This is a story that, again, we've known that. We've known that for a while now. And I had this thought, Joe, we were talking before we came on. I said, is this the first time he's heard of this? It kind of, but by the way the tweet is crafted, it kind of makes me think, KRK, is this the first time an executive producer knows that Jake Files is under investigation from the FBI? Maybe I should shut up. I hope this will just kind of light a fire under some people to do their jobs and speak truth to power, regardless of political party affiliation. Probably not, though. You're probably right, Joe. Now, why would David Whitaker, the minority leader, why would he be asking Speaker of the House Gillum about impeachment proceedings? Well, because impeachment in the Arkansas House of Representatives is now a new thing. You see, back when Asa was executing those people, or when we did the executions, you had Judge Wendell Griffin. Do you remember what he did? Judge Wendell Griffin, he went to an anti-death penalty protest. And this was considered to be wrong because he was essentially a judge that is now no longer impartial, and he's going to a death penalty protest, and he lies down on a cot, and he pretends to be dead. It was like a form of naturalism theater or realism theater, where he just kind of sits, lays there like he's a dead person, trying to call attention to how wrong the death penalty is in his opinion. So that prompted people to say, hey, you need to be impeached. Now, one of the leaders of that idea was Senator Trent Gardner. Senator Trent Gardner, several occasions on Facebook or some form of social media, maybe Twitter as well, has called for Judge Wendell Griffin to be impeached. Well, so you got to back up a few months in the special session that they had. One of the things on the agenda was to try to come up with official rules for impeaching, government officials. And it was a really boring debate. And then there were some people that didn't trust what was being said and everything else. The Democrats actually threw a fit. That's what's so funny here. Because this was all perceived and was directed, towards a liberal judge who had gone outside of the scope of, what is an accepted practice of a judge. All the Democrats were throwing a fit. You actually had at one point Speaker Jeremy Gillum down there when he was asked if this was specifically about Judge Wendell Griffin. He said no, which I thought was totally an inaccurate statement to make. The whole reason they were coming up with impeachment rules was because you had this one guy and you had a senator saying he needed to be impeached. And the Democrats, he was expecting the Democrats to just say, oh, yeah, you guys just thought of it. It's just a big coincidence that all of a sudden you want to establish what the impeachment process is. So it's actually not really been done. And so that's why David Whitaker is now asking, and it's very ironic. The Democrats didn't want the impeachment rules, but now they want to use them on Jake Files. I mean, maybe what Jake Files has done and the people who are covering up for him, like the media, the Arkansas Republican Party, and Asa Hutchinson, maybe this wakes the Democrat Party up to where they actually have the adversarial relationship they all pretend to have. Maybe the pretend foe adversarial relationship becomes real again. I don't know. Oh, it'll become real over something other than statues and guns. How about that? But everything else, they're basically enjoying the policies that have been enacted by the huge, large Republican majorities. Anyway, big news. Again, David Whitaker, minority leader, calling on Speaker Gillum to deliver to him the rules for impeaching Senator Jake Files. Let me know what you think. 870-275-9799. Back in a minute. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody. Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, the breaking news, again, KARK, Jesse Turner, letter from the House Minority Leader Democrat David Whitaker asking Speaker Jeremy Gillum to send him instructions on how they impeach Jake Files. Essentially saying that if we decide we want to impeach Jake Files, how do we go about doing that? Will you please send us the instructions to impeach Jake Files? What does this mean? What do I expect to happen out of this? Well, honestly, Speaker Jeremy Gillum will probably wait 4, 5, 6 weeks. Then we'll respond to that letter, and about that time, Jake Files will resign. And they will avoid calling a special election in time to have a sitting senator for the fiscal session in January. Next. I don't know when it is. I mean, it's in the March, April. I believe that's when the fiscal session is anyway. Or is it right? It's after the primaries. So you wouldn't want to have a session and then have an election, right? No, you wouldn't want to do that. Be too close to the people getting to throw you out of office for something you did that was stupid. But that's what I firmly believe. They want to deprive the voters of District 8 of a duly elected representative, one that's not being investigated by the FBI, one that can be trusted. Clearly the public's trust has been completely breached here. And the result of that would also be that our trust in Asa, which mine wasn't, I don't have any trust in him anyway. My trust in the Arkansas Republican Party, what little that there was left, is now gone, at least in the leadership, or maybe in the party apparatus itself to be able to try to protect its own brand. I mean, you got to understand something. I mean, the lack of shame here is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And, there could be a possibility that Jake Files is making a plea deal or that Jake Files has information on others and blah, blah, blah. He still has no business being in office, period. And so that's why it's just very easy for me to say, I don't know how. I don't know how Governor Hutchinson and, party leaders like the Chairman Doyle Whip, I don't know how you guys can just with a straight face pretend like everything is okay and that you don't have some responsibility in getting Jake Files to resign. I mean, there's no, it's not about forcing anything. It's not like they have they can't force him to, but you understand, folks, anybody that says that they have no part to play here, that they can't say, you know what, okay, now you're out, and then he would be out, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself if you don't think that's how this works. I mean, it was the Republicans that walked across Capitol Hill in D.C. and got Richard Nixon to resign. Okay? This is how it works. This is the precedent. There is a process for this, and it's just unbelievable. Now, this was developing news. I did not plan to talk about this today at all, but here we are. I mean, this was news. Let me see. Let me click on Jesse Turner's tweet here again. When was this? This was about an hour ago, so this came out about an hour ago. I didn't see it until literally we were 5 minutes before going on the air. And so this is a developing story. But again, we're going to move on from this. We're up against a hard break here in just a minute. We're going to move on for this. But if you're just joining us, the new Jake Files development is the minority leader, David Whitaker, is asking the Republican Speaker of the House for instructions on how to impeach Senator Jake Files. We will keep you updated on this. The number, call us, text us, 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Concealed carry, whatever. There's been, attorney general, two attorney general opinions, one terrible, the other, better, but still, not really what the law says. And so there's still people now, Misty, that don't really know about the rights that they do have, the decriminalized status of our gun law. So I just want to bring our listeners up to speed if they're just joining us. So pick up back with the story of how you got involved. You decided to go ask your sheriff what their policy was going to be on the new law.
Well, I showed him the law. The 746 says carrying a weapon reads as follows: a person commits the offense of carrying a weapon if he or she possesses a handgun, knife, or club on or about his or her person in a vehicle occupied by him or her or otherwise readily available for use with a purpose to attempt to unlawfully employ the handgun, knife, or club as a weapon against the person. So if you have no intentions of committing a crime, then you're perfectly legal to carry that gun or that knife or that club or whatever. And it doesn't say anything about having a license to carry concealed. It doesn't say, it says on or about your person. It doesn't say that you have to have a license to carry concealed. It doesn't say that, anything, how you're carrying it. Well, so, the law to me, is crystal clear.
Yeah. I think it is. It is to me, too. I think it is to every prosecutor in the state of Arkansas that, keeps dropping these charges from these police officers that I guess they're uncomfortable with it, or they don't want to acknowledge it. It's a big deal. So what did your sheriff say at the time?
He was kind of almost like he was avoiding answering the question. Well, when I invited him to the meeting that we had, I think it was in January of 2016, that sounds right, he got to sit with these guys who's been doing this, since 2013. And he got to talk with these guys, and I think it finally clicked. He's like, yeah, this is right. This is crystal clear. So, he doesn't mess with anybody. I've never in this county ever heard of anybody getting harassed for open carrying or anything like that. And he learned a lot that day. I learned a lot that day. A lot of people learned a lot that day. We had a lot of law enforcement there. We actually had a state trooper there.
Yeah.
And
Arkansas State Police, that's that certainly has been an obstacle, when you look at the amount of huge
obstacle.
Yeah, and I really hate that it's become, or it was at least, or still is, adversarial in a lot of ways, because we're talking about a lot of money, and if people realize that they don't necessarily need a concealed carry permit, because that's the rub. Do you need a concealed carry permit to conceal carry? If you read that law, the answer is clearly no. That makes a lot of people uncomfortable. That's a lot of revenue that people go and a lot of classes that people take. But I just, I don't understand why the Arkansas State Police wouldn't change with the times, because they really could. All they'd have to say is, that may be the case, but if you want to travel to the beach, if you want to go to all these states, we still reciprocate with other states that aren't constitutional carry states. So it's still in your best interest to get one of these things if you want to protect your family while going out of the state of Arkansas. They could approach it from that standpoint, but they don't. And that's this.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, folks, welcome back. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the program. That's 870-275-9799. Okay, so yesterday on the program, many of you might have been listening when we decided to fill out the survey, the newest Conduit for Action survey that had to do with recording bills in committee. And unfortunately for Joe, he didn't do too hot on it. And also, unfortunately for Joe, he didn't. I failed. Okay, I failed to get Joe to commit to the results. You know how they asked Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and all these people. You know, they said, "Hey, regardless, like, however the primary process ends up, will you accept the Republican nominee? Will you support the Republican nominee?" And, you know, they would get all these guys on record. I failed to do that with Joe. We're going to do that now.
That is not true.
I failed. I didn't do it. I failed to do that with Joe. So from now on, because Joe was complaining about a technicality in the question and everything else.
But here's the thing. In normal logic, would it not make sense that if you do not get the majority, like the votes you need, spoken
like Ted Cruz or Donald Trump? I mean, you know, or somebody else,
not,
or a Marco Rubio.
Using the words of Donald Trump, I will not accept the outcome of the election because I'm going to win.
From now on, I will get a secure commitment from him, so we never have to edit a question again. But for those of you, yes, okay, you know where we're going with this. The Condor Fraction Survey, question number 2, now has been changed a little bit. Joe, do you mind reading us question 2?
The new question 2
yeah.
says, what is the result of a vote on a bill in committee when the chairman calls it as bill passes, when there were actually less than a majority number of audible yes votes? For example, in a Senate committee, only 3 or 4 senators audibly vote yes, even though it takes 5 yes votes to pass the bill, and the chairman declares the bill passes. What is the result of that vote on the bill?
Okay, and the options are that the bill is reconsidered at another day and time, the bill fails, how the chairman voted is the result of whether the bill passes. So if the chairman voted yes, the bill passes, and if the chairman voted no, the bill fails. Or last choice, the bill passes unless a legislator calls for a roll call vote on the bill to defeat it.
And, of course, it is the fourth answer.
Yeah, D is the answer. The bill passes unless a legislator calls for a roll call vote. So, are you happy, Joe, that the question's now been changed?
I was fine with the
else?
question before, but it was a little misleading.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just think you're not going to get your way again, so we're going to get you to commit.
Oh, you say that.
We're going to get you to commit from now on to just accepting the survey as is, just you going into this. And I bet you were one of those students that, like, argued with the teacher all the time.
Never argued with the teacher.
No, you didn't? Like, on a test? Like, this question is unfair.
No, never had a reason to.
Okay. Well, so now...
I usually made good grades, so I was fine with it.
For some reason, that makes me even... That like makes me
in
very
high school,
frustrated
grades were fine. College is another story because college is way more difficult.
So you did, but you didn't argue. You weren't like, no, well, that's a good characteristic.
Mostly in college, you don't get your tests back.
So why? So
they just give you your results, and they just.
So was that out of respect that you didn't argue, that you didn't dispute? Was it like a respect thing? You just respected authority? Is that what it was?
It wasn't that. It was just that I didn't care enough.
Okay.
And I see this, I'm like, you know what? No.
So that's actually really good. That's kind of
I care too much.
And I mean, I can't say I never argued with a teacher or argued with a professor over what I thought was fair treatment. I certainly can't say that, but I will say, I didn't really care about anything until I got out of college. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I get that.
So I was telling somebody the other day. I did a small business spotlight with a fantastic businesswoman, and we're going to play it probably tomorrow at 5:30. I think that's the schedule. We got a jam-packed Friday, Johnny Cash Friday for you tomorrow. But anyway, we were just getting to know each other before we recorded the interview, and I just kind of told her, I said, hey, because she used to be a professor at Arkansas State, and I said that it wasn't until I got out of college that I actually enjoyed reading. And enjoyed reading. Like, I didn't ever enjoy reading at all. But it was like something happened. I don't know what it was. This maybe, I don't know. I anytime I make a mistake, I always look at my wife and I say, I have an undiagnosed, never before researched learning disability. So you have to just give me some slack. But I really do think when they start talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and how sometimes their brains aren't developed as much. And I'm not a fan of extended adolescence. Don't misunderstand me, but I do think there may be some scientific truth to that, just in terms of like when you're actually mature and everything.
Well, think about it this way: for the first 22-ish years of your life, you're forced to. This is what you have to read. This is what you have to learn. But once you're out of college, it's I learn what I want to learn. Like if you read something, it's only because you're interested in it. So it's actually stuff you're things you find interesting or things you care about. So you
and there's more of a sink or swim, of job security and that sort of thing.
Well, there's that, but like when it comes to like learning things and learning new ideas or researching topics, they're usually something that you care about as an individual. So you're going to enjoy it way more.
Yeah. Yeah, and what some of what you're describing is everything's kind of set out in the public education system and everything else, and there's an institutional, like it's just you're institutionalized. Well, a lot of people don't understand this. Our public education system today is not based on freedom of choice. Clearly, I mean, the Republican Party of Arkansas was scared of it. I mean, it's really about creating future taxpayers, but in a way that's not like, hey, let the market do whatever the market's going to do, but in a way it's like, we've got to focus these kids, and these need to be workers, and these need to be doctors, and these need to be, it's really kind of scary. As a first-time parent, I'm 33 years old. I have a daughter who turned 8 weeks old today. Yesterday. And
today's Thursday, Paul.
Yeah, so Wednesday. So the more I think about it, because now you're thinking of all these things that I've never really thought about before, and I think about the public education system, and I think to myself, no. Now I'm not saying I'm not putting my daughter in public education. Like I'm not saying there's been any conclusive, but I just think about what I went through and how bad I thought it was then, and I'm just like, wow, Or I think about this. I think about college. I think, man, why? College is so necessary for a lot of professions, but there's a lot more that it's just not. And I think about myself, like, okay, what would I want my daughter to do? Like, and I want her to do what she wants to do, but I would love for her just to have skills to like start a business and have to and avoid all of that, avoid a lot of the stuff that that's really just. Well, for example, let's just take college. You go through high school because you got to, right? The government says you got to. You have to learn math. You have to learn algebra. You have to learn history. You have to learn, all these things. And then you go to college and they gouge you. Speaking of gouging, they make you take all the stuff you just spent 4 years learning. You have to retake it just to grease the palms of the university to actually let you get into what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then you're only doing that for a piece of paper at the end of the 4 years or however long you stay in. And you'll talk to some engineers that go to school to be an engineer, and they graduate. They don't even know that. It's not until you actually get on the job that you understand how to apply some of this stuff.
Yeah. So like. At Arkansas State, the marketing department, like let's just say you're going for a basic marketing degree, you won't actually start a marketing class until your third year.
Yeah, I mean,
like all the stuff up to that point is either the basics where like it's the math, chemistry, science, all that stuff, and then once you're getting out of that, it's what's considered the core of a business degree, quote unquote. I got air quotes going on over here, where you take like econ classes, accounting classes, but you don't get into a marketing class until your third year.
Yeah.
Which is really that was the one thing I was looking forward to. But when I got there, honestly, it was really like my teacher was great. My teacher was fantastic. He was one of the best teachers I've ever had. But it wasn't what I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when it comes to degrees, it was a little too late for me to finish in 4 years.
Yeah,
I ended up going
and
longer.
There's much like government. Okay, Arkansas wants the internet sales tax. A lot of these politicians want the internet sales tax. They want to punish the convenience of technology today. They want to control it, but they don't want to change with the times. I mean, for example, tomorrow we're going to be interviewing State Representative Austin McCollum about a good bill that he got passed. And it was a bill that actually is going to consolidate digital data within the government into one spot, right? That will eventually end some of this duplicative stuff. It's like the government still wants to operate in like a 1970s, 1960s, scheme. And you've heard this talked about before. And I think colleges are much the same way. the way we organize and the way we determine, who's going to work where, or what kind of piece of paper you need to let somebody take you seriously in a job interview, I think that's going to begin to change, because if I'm honest about it, if I have a question or I don't know how to do something technical, I can get on the internet and I can teach myself how to do a ton of stuff with just a little bit of, reading and being able to comprehend. I mean, that's why just teaching kids how to read, write, and do math is such an important skill these days. And so there's just all of this stuff that in many ways, these colleges, universities, most of them, I mean, these are extensions of the state. The vast majority of them, they are extensions of, they are publicly funded institutions. And so it goes hand in hand that, and these publicly funded institutions, mind you, have no incentive to control costs because the government is behind guaranteeing student loans. So they have a guaranteed inflow of freshmen every year who have graduated high school. The government's guaranteeing the school money so they can continue to build. They even can continue to raise tuition because guess what? The student, and in many cases the parent, may not really care how much it is if you're using a bank, if you're using government guaranteed funding. And so we are, the government gets to operate in a world where there is no free market, where they don't have voluntary customers, where it's all kind of this forced situation. And even when it is voluntary, like college used to be, they fixed the pricing scheme to where somehow you don't really care about it because you'll pay for it later, and they can just continue to raise prices and spend more and more and more and more and more. And something's really wrong about that, And then you get these kids. You have these millennials, you have some of these Antifa people. I'm sure some of them are just really upset and want communism or socialism because they're in debt, 20, 30, 40, 100 grand, and they got a degree in underwater basket weaving, and somebody told them that there was going to be a huge market for that someday. Some sort of weird David Blaine underwater street magic where people are going to want you to weave them a basket underwater, while you're chained up like Houdini or something. And that just, quite frankly, there wasn't ever a market for that. And no one told them that. But the universities were like, yeah, we'll take the government money and, we'll we'll treat you great. And then we're going to force feed you all of this Marxist chalkboard stuff where everything looks great on a chalkboard. And then you're going to go out and you're not going to have an opportunity, but we've taught you we've taught you to be a victim. And you think you're entitled to have a market for underwater basket weaving, or you should just be able to weave as many baskets as you want underwater, and the government and other people should have to pay for it. And if you disagree with that, then you're a white privileged man spreading, chauvinist. And you know what? Antifa looks pretty good. I'm going to go march and tear some heads off of some Robert E. Lee statues. I mean, that's kind of where it goes. There's a lot of yada, yada, yadas in there somewhere. But anyway, the telephone number, if you want to call us or text us today, 870-275-9799. Before we go, I want to transition. Let's talk about Hurricane Harvey real quick, okay? Joe, cue this audio up. This is how we should have, and I'm sorry, I failed you. I know we don't talk about national stuff. Listen to this. This is a guy who came down from Kentucky to help the victims of Hurricane Harvey. He's in a boat, and this is what he said about the entire situation there. Listen to this.
We felt like we was at home. And we were hungry. There's no place open to get nothing to eat. And them people fed us. I just wanted to cry, man. I never seen so much love in a place in my life as I've seen here. And I just thank God for the opportunity to do something for me.
That is the story that you don't hear, isn't it? I just thank God for the opportunity to be here. I have never seen more love in a place. Think about how strange that is. You've got devastation, you've got death, you've got personal loss, you've got grief, you've got some people crying out, and yet all the people that are helping, doing the best they can, sacrificing their time, not caring about themselves, caring about other people, and that is the country that we can be. What a blessing. And yet, first of all, doesn't this contradict the narrative? Show me James Woods over at paulharrell.com. And let's see, we got paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, YouTube. Look at this. Look at this tweet here. Now, click on the photo so we can get the full meme. Look at this meme here. This is James Wood who's tweeted this meme. And we have a black guy with braids, okay, long hair, about down to the middle of his back. Rastafarian shirt? Okay. It's a Rastafarian shirt. Okay, now am I saying that right?
He's wearing a Rastafarian T-shirt.
Okay.
It's actually really nice. I actually like it.
So we got this guy, and he's helping. He's in a Rastafarian T-shirt, whatever that is, Joe. But I vaguely know what you're talking about, but not. And then he's helping this old man. I mean, this guy's old, and he's got some sort of a New Orleans Saints T-shirt on, I believe, Super Bowl champions, and this younger black guy is helping him through the water to getting him to safety. And the meme is, America in reality, don't let the media divide us. America in reality, don't let the media divide us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are pictures like this all over the place. I saw one where a man was rescuing an Asian lady. I saw another where you had a black man rescuing 2 white kids. I mean, there's all of these photos out there where people are just helping other people because they're human beings. And it directly contradicts the mainstream media that we're on the verge of a race war. So go to the next James Woods. James Woods, actor, kind of a blackballed conservative actor, you know what I mean? James Woods retweeting and commenting, the only group to separate Harvey victims by color, race, or national background. Everybody else is just saving people. Look at this. Hashtag no surprise, hashtag racist. He retweets the Women's March. You remember these people, the Women's March? It was right after Donald Trump got elected president. The next weekend they had the Women's March, and they all, were acting oppressed and victimized. This is what they tweet. They tweet colorlines.com. Colorlines.com, which I believe is some sort of political group. I bet they don't even send the money. They say, here's a list of organizations working to keep immigrant, black, Latinx, and other communities safe after Hurricane Harvey. They want to make sure, the Women's March, that none of the money going to the relief goes to white people. Now think about this for a second. I mean, if you're the left, see, this is their ideology is their religion. Anybody ever have somebody insult your religious beliefs? I mean, really insult them. Now, I think it's a learned thing. I used to get kind of mad about it, or really mad. Now it's just more. I try to have compassion, and I don't get as worked up about it. But you understand, if somebody tries to go against something that you've believed all your life, and in many cases this can be kind of a guilt on Christians if you don't actually know why you believe what you believe. Like if you don't actually have a defense or apologetics of it. I mean, that people can get really defensive, and it can bring out the worst in people. But I want you to think of what the left believes as a type of religion. You can actually really chart similarities if you start looking at the climate change people and Gaia worship, or worshiping the earth. But when they see these images of multiracial people helping each other, and it directly contradicts the narrative, they kind of go into meltdown mode. They kind of lash out. And that's why you saw the Politico cartoon yesterday that we covered that was depicting Southern people as stupid for believing in God and being KKK supporters. Go to the next article. Is this the Salon article? Look, I know we need to go to break. We're going to finish this, though. Salon.com. This was their headline on the 28th. On the 28th of this week, they are asking people to pick between a civil war, and they want you to pick sides. Quote, if this is a civil war, pick a side. Donald Trump, white nationalism, and the future of America. And they say history will judge you for your choice. That's the leftist media and the mainstream media. That's what they want you to think. Then look at how effective it is even all the way overseas. Look at the magazine Charlie Hebdo, which is a government-subsidized magazine in France. Obviously the victims of what happened when they published the Mohammed cartoons. But look at this. Charlie Hebdo, they have a cartoon depicting the victims of Hurricane Harvey as neo-Nazis, and they're all Zing Heiling as the waters come over their hands with Nazi flags in the background. Just want you to know, there's just people, some of them just peddling a deliberately false narrative, and others are having a really hard time, in my opinion, dealing with the reality that breaks through what the false perception the media is trying to convey. And I'm just glad you got guys like that. I've never felt more love. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear something positive in the midst of such grief and tragedy. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com.
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government,
The government better not tax our patience.
the more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patients will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. A few of your text messages here. We have Kay texting in. So far, I haven't got what Jake Files actually did. Did he wipe his computer files off with a cloth? Or maybe he sat in the White House and watched in live stream via satellite while the Muslims raped our American ambassador, Terry Stevens, with bayonets. Yeah, Kay, that's quite the comparison there. For those of you that don't know, because I maybe assume that many of you did when we broke the news that David Whitaker is, or we didn't break the news, but Jesse Turner did, that David Whitaker is now calling for Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum to give to him the instructions for impeachment concerning Jake Files and what he did by stealing $26,000 of taxpayer money with a very lazy attempt to launder it by giving it to his employee, and it's a whole thing. But there's an FBI affidavit, sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury that is out there right now, and we've got bank numbers, we got the direct deposits and check numbers and checking amounts. It all matches up. We have one more hour coming your way next. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
20.
And, I mean, they actually tell you that it's about the money. I mean, they will actually tell you. It's no secret that that's what it's all about, is the money.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's and so it's essentially like, hey, we would rather tax you to exercise your right than just admit that you have the right.
Right.
I mean, that's just incredible. So
pretty sad.
But so Patriots of X746, you guys are out there trying to educate, and you guys have made a lot of headway, though. I mean, there's a group of over 10,000 people, closed group on Facebook. So it is going good, and more people are starting to figure out. I mean, have there been jurisdictions since this thing started that, used to ignore the new law, and now they have come around to it?
Oh, I'm sure. All of the members, or not all the members, but quite a few of the members are starting to question people in their jurisdiction. I know I've talked to the chief of police here, the sheriff here. We have 2 people running for sheriff this election term, and they're good with it. I mean, it's good for them. Mm-hmm. So these people are actually starting to contact these people, where we can't just go in every county and contact, like I can't just go contact every single sheriff, in every county and find out what they think about it. I mean, these people are doing it. Everybody's doing it.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard about
it's amazing. We actually...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying, have you heard about... I've got somebody on the Facebook Live video, Paul, writing in saying that Arizona has a non-resident permit available for out-of-state carry until the Arkansas State Police leadership support our right to carry. Stop sending them your hard-earned money. What do you know about this Arizona thing? I've heard about this before.
It's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. It's not like the Arkansas State Police where it funds their retirement fund or whatever it is that we're funding. It's not mandatory. They're not doing it for the money.
Mm-hmm. Man.
So, it's a whole lot cheaper, and it keeps your money out of the Arkansas State Police, whatever kind of scheme they're running here.
Misty, you're telling me that the money that people pay to be able to exercise their Second Amendment right goes to fund their retirement?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure,
but I just think if that's the direct source, man, that is such a perversion of the Constitution, if you think about it, because now we have people who are out there to protect us that now have an interest in seeing us disarmed.
Oh, yeah. They want to regulate. Control. Gun control is all about control. Regulations are all about control. I mean, it's pretty pathetic if you actually think about it. That it's what is it, over $200 to get a concealed carry permit here?
Yeah, and then don't you have to pay for the background check? I mean, is it more than that? Because on the Facebook page we have Paul participating. He says that Arizona is a $60 license for 5 years. That's pretty cheap. That's very cheap.
Yep.
And, of course, Arizona's reciprocal with other states and things like that.
Right.
Were you pleased, though? I mean, were you pleased with John Payton? State Representative John Payton, he passed a law this last session that essentially reaffirmed Act 746. Are you familiar with that?
I didn't hear you. I'm driving. I didn't hear what you said.
No, it's fine. So, State Representative John Payton, he passed a law kind of reaffirming Act 746, saying that the Arkansas State Police could not change the rules and say, hey, look, if we catch you with if we catch you can open carrying with a concealed or open carrying and you have a concealed carry, we can take your concealed carry away. They seem to try to correct that this past session, and it did not get signed by the governor, but it went into law without his signature. So there is it's not just some fringe group, is what I'm trying to say. There are now being direct legislative remedies being put to use by some of the good guys to try to clarify to law enforcement, hey, you guys need to enforce the laws on the books.
Right. I mean, and they've actually said that, I know some concealed carry instructors have actually said this, that if you are open carrying and you have a concealed carry license, they will take it from you. And we've had people test that theory out, and they haven't taken it yet, and then they pass that law, and they can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't, they still won't say that you don't have to have it.
Yeah. And that's just, and that's what's a shame. They still will not just come out and admit it. Because, I mean, I don't know. Because of the money. I mean, they might say, well, we don't want it to become the Wild Wild West. But, I mean, that's not going to happen. This has been This has been happening now since 2013, and it's been everything's been fine, and there's been more freedom.
Right.
And do you agree with the statement, an armed society is a polite society, Misty?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
I mean, if you look at the statistics from cities like Chicago, places where guns are banned, I mean, everybody knows these. Chicago's gun laws are insane. I mean, basically you can't have one. And
the maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. It is hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine, and we can't do the program without you listening every single day. The phone number to call us or text us is 870-275-9799. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. Okay. So, see, up on our secret whiteboard that you guys can't see, not this one, not the look over there whiteboard, this one, we've got, what does it say? Just says Asa gets what he wants, right? Okay. And so what's interesting is a story that we did, I believe it was this time last week, exactly. We interviewed Senator Scott Flippo about the legislature trying to review a contract that the governor wants to award to on behalf of DHS. So DHS needs a contract, okay, and it's a lot of money, and they want to switch vendors. The current vendor has no complaints, and they are doing the job $42 million cheaper than the contractor that ASA wants to use. And this was a huge rub. And Senator Scott Flippo, he decided to say, hey, this is wrong. There was also some others that did it. Well, the governor has now said he's going to go ahead and do it anyway. He's going to go ahead and just instruct DHS to go ahead and make the deal, going out on his own here. So the question comes to my mind. So what's the point of even having legislative review if the governor legally doesn't even have to have them to do it? I mean, they can try to say no, and he can go ahead and do it anyway. First of all, that should tell you something about ASA, but secondly, it should tell you we need to have a legislature that's not a lapdog. We need to do something about this. And that's the first thing. The second thing would be that ASA does always get what he wants. It seems to be the way things go. Paul Greenberg, though, has an editorial in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette about this specific issue. Paul Greenberg's title, Hurry Up and Sign, he says. What does that remind you of? Anybody ever say, hey, hurry up and sign? That's the last thing you ever want to hear. You hear somebody tell you that? Hurry up and sign. Don't sign it. Paul Greenberg writes, there are times when the Honorable Asa Hutchinson, chief executive of the supposedly sovereign state of Arkansas, can sound more like a cheap, used car salesman putting the pressure on some sucker who's about to buy an overpriced jalopy under the impression he's getting a hell of a deal and had better sign on the dotted line before closing time. Said sucker has forgotten the first rule when it comes to avoiding buyer's remorse. Never sign anything in a hurry, and certainly not when the seller, whatever oh-so-reasonable phrases he may use, is really saying. Oh, man, that's great. That's so great. Because you know what? Whatever the oh-so-reasonable phrases he may use, that is exactly Asa Hutchinson's M.O. Exactly his M.O. Now, in this program, we call it CCL, Carefully Crafted Language. That is a term that is coined by Asa himself when he was once asked something really... so are we getting rid of Medicaid expansion? This was after his big speech to UAMS, and he didn't want to answer the question because it was a tough question. So he said, I'll refer everyone back to my remarks because that's the key language that was carefully crafted. End quote. That's what he said. So we've just decided to pick that up and run with it. Carefully crafted language. That's what this is describing. The oh-so-reasonable phrases he may like to use. That's what carefully crafted language is. It's where you can't really tell where he stands. He can go to sleep at night and say, well, technically I didn't lie, but you are deceiving. I mean, that's, in my opinion, I think most of us were raised to think that that's, not being honest with people. And that not being honest with people is wrong. You just tell us what you believe. The problem is if Asa were to... be honest, this is what he would say. He'd say, you know what? It's a balancing act. Some people tell me that politicians have actually secretly told them this. It's a balancing act. You have to balance the will of your constituents with Little Rock. Now, I don't know for a fact who said that. I mean, I know who the person told, but I'm not going to tell you who. It's all alleged, all allegation. But I'm just going to say that certainly that's what's going on. There are people who are so calculating, not just the governor, but you have to balance. It's a balancing act. Your district versus Little Rock. I think most Arkansans would be so angry they'd pull their hair out, or they'd pull the politician's hair out. I mean, not that I'm encouraging violence. I'm not. Let's go on. Paul Greenberg. Sign here or else. Arkies are well known for not responding well to threats, and our governor has come all too close to making one in this sad instance. In a letter to the state's Legislative Council, the Gov says he's seeking immediate and final review of all pending contracts on the agenda, notably including one with Deloitte Consulting of Hermitage, Tennessee. Quote, so that the business of the state can continue, I have supported reasonable legislative review. My view is that each branch of government should strive to avoid constitutional challenges when possible and to work in a spirit of comedy with the other branches. I'm probably pronouncing comedy wrong. Comity. It's a word I don't normally use. Basically just be congenial. Now, so I decided to pull some audio. Can you give me the audio, Joe? This is, I don't know how good this is because this is a YouTube video. We'll have to see how good or bad this is going to be. But back on April the 6th of 2016, Governor Hutchinson was having a joint session of the General Assembly where he decided to address the General Assembly on a special session concerning Arkansas Works. This is back when the fiscal session got way out of hand in terms of they were in deadlock. They didn't have the votes, so the governor did an unconstitutional, in my opinion, line item veto of something that he didn't have the authority to do. But listen to what Asa said about the branches of government.
We
back
are
then.
here today. First, let me say something about the relationship between the legislative branch and the executive branch. What was the design of the Founding Fathers? The design of the Founding Fathers is that we keep an eye on each other. And let me assure you, you all are doing a good job.
By the way, contrast the reception that Asa got in 2016 with the special session reception he got in 2017. It's amazing. I mean, there was hardly any applause. There's hardly any laughing. I mean, people, they treat Asa completely different than they used to. Just from my observation, somebody who's down there and follows all of this. I mean, that right there, you don't hear that anymore. This was April 2016. A year later, no. People were upset. And a lot of them are now even more upset because they see their scorecards from varying groups, and they're like, gosh, I shouldn't have been so committed to Asa's agenda, and I would have had better scores. Things like, economic prosperity or social values and things like that.
Some call it a check and balance, separate but equal branches of government. And there should always be some natural tension between the branches of government, some disagreement.
Now, this is not true in the tenure of Asa, and really until this moment with them, they're then saying, we don't want to give you this contract that's $42 million more expensive. $42 million. Now, what happens with that $42 million? To this group out of Hermitage, Tennessee, what do you think they do? Not just with the extra $42 million, but they're getting, I can't remember how much the contract is, but it's $42 million more expensive, which is than what they're doing it for now, which is a lot. Can you imagine where that $42 million goes? Does it go to lobbying firms? Do you think there's some? You think the Deloitte out of Hermitage, Tennessee? Do you think that they employ some good lobbying firms in the state to get this contract? Of course they do. Okay, so the lobbying firms are going to be compensated. Are there who's working for those firms? Are they well-known politicos? Maybe people who used to hold office? I mean, maybe so. Some of that money's probably going to them. Does any of that money, that extra $42 million, go from Deloitte to maybe, I don't know, political action committees that then in turn go back into campaigns for politicians that are going to support this? I don't know. Maybe it's maybe the Republican Governors Association or something. I mean, where is it going to go? I mean, we're just speculating. I mean, what purpose would Asa have to spend an extra $42 million when right now we have the old company that has no complaints, it's doing this fine, and all they can say is, well, once every 7 years we have to rebid the contract. Okay, you're rebidding it, and you're going with the contract that's $42 million more expensive. Now, in any sane reality, nobody would run a business that way. Nobody would run a business that way. So, but he has great respect for the checks and balances, though.
As someone famously said, disagreement is the lifeblood of democracy. But I'm proud of our working relationship, our friendship, and our mutual goal of serving the state of Arkansas, and the willingness to yield our personal political interest to accomplish things that are higher and those things that are greater.
Personal political interests. No, that's definitely projecting. Ace is certainly not sacrificing personal political interests, nor would I call on any of them to ever do that. What does that even mean? Sacrifice your own personal political interests. You see, this is what progressives do, and it drives me nuts. They want you to believe that there are just some things the government does that are not political. There are just these some things that, the government just has to do, and it ignores a basic truth that everything the government does is agenda-driven. Everything the government does is political because we're being run by men. We're not being run by impartial angels. We're not being run by that. We're being run by fallible men and women who do corrupt things. Sometimes we do good things. when it comes time to making laws that other people have to live under, most of the time, men do bad things. That's why government must be limited, because you're never going to eliminate the corruption of the human heart. Ever. I would never ask somebody, will you sacrifice your political goals? No, because you would be betraying that's what that says. Let's betray the people who sent me here. And say, you see, and this is an old speech. I didn't mean to get wrapped up in this. Back to Paul Greenberg. Back to Paul Greenberg. But, as you knew the inevitable, the but was coming, didn't you? Paul Greenberg writes, the review of the proposed state contracts, the governor just had to add, quote, should be limited to traditional oversight work to aid in determining whether changes need to be made by future legislation. Meaning, if you have a problem with, we'll pass future legislation, but you're not going to do anything to derail this deal. The review should not be aimed at rewriting the terms or second-guessing the executive branch of its decision-making. Do not second-guess ASA. What did he just say? Oh, we're supposed to be a check on each other. Now, Paul Greenberg writes, free translation, could we please let bygones be bygones, ladies and gentlemen of the legislative branch, and let me have my way? Listen, Asa Hutchinson knows no other reality of letting me have my way. He is so used to it that he will not ask Jake Files to resign because he wants Matt Pitch, and he believes Matt Pitch would be more preferable to his interests as a state senator. And a special election would derail that because state representatives cannot create the need for extra special elections by jumping into a race on a special election. And that's what they're worried about. Friend of the program, Senator Scott Flippo, the Republican state senator from Mountain Home, Greenberg writes, begged to differ with the state's chief executive officer and super salesman, for he stood his ground against this deluge of sugar-coated malarkey, and he was joined in his stand by State Senator Jimmy Hickey of Texarkana, who added, quote, now there is this thought, he said, that we don't have the right to look over this stuff. I don't know anybody within the legislature who has ever said that the governor cannot go ahead and override us when it comes to this contract with Deloitte Consulting. But I think the public sent us as legislators up here to have oversight and to look at this stuff. When this stuff is so egregious this way, I think it is our right to do this. And if the governor wants to defend it out in public, that's his right. Senator Hickey was no more eager to deny the governor his right to free speech than he would give up his own. Good for him. Now, this is a shot. I've said for a while, the honeymoon is over with Asa. Right now, they just need opportunity to not do what he says. But he's essentially saying, look, if Asa wants to go out into the public and defend a contract that we have a problem with because you're giving somebody $42 million more than we don't need, that we don't have to give them, then so be it. You can go defend that in public. Goes on, the state senator from Texarkana could not refrain from noting how much more this proposed contract with Deloitte would cost the state taxpayers. He confessed he was at a loss to explain, quote, how in the world that I could go out there to the public and say that your confidence has been increased with us because of the way we are doing requests for proposals. When you have a company that has been doing it for years, all their evaluations are great, and whenever we put out another request for proposal, we structure it to the point that some other company comes in, and now we are going to pay them this huge amount more. How would you answer that question to the public? That question, Senator Hickey put to, who was it? Kelly Link. That's right, Kelly Link, a great beneficiary of the revolving door of state representatives, which he was. They created a brand new position for him at DHS to be a legislative liaison so he could somehow lobby his colleagues and essentially get them to all toe the line. You know, I know Kelly, he's a good guy, and he'll get all the votes lined up. He's essentially, Kelly Link is a political whip for DHS. That's what Kelly Link is. You know, you actually have the whip, you know, the actual political, you know, the Republican whip trying to whip up the votes. Well, that's what Kelly Link is, except he's for the bureaucracy, trying to use his relationship with the politicians to make sure that they don't actually vote, in my opinion, for limited government. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in just a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, welcome back. 870-275-9799. So Paul Greenberg here, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial writer, he is comparing Governor Asa Hutchinson to a used car salesman. To a used car salesman. Anybody find that hilarious? I mean, can you imagine the carefully crafted? I never thought about it. I mean, can you imagine Asa Hutchinson on a used car lot trying to sell you a car? I mean, if Paul Greenberg is right and Asa is a used car salesman, how many of us bought it? How many of us bought it just because it was a Chevy, just because it was a Toyota or whatever? You know, It probably was a Toyota with all the Chinese companies moving here. Or is that a Japanese company? Sorry. But anyway, we all bought it because of the brand. We bought it because of the brand. It was like an Edsel, though. Everyone's like, oh, it was a... And then it just falls to pieces. I mean, that's what the Republican brand is doing right now. When you look at the contract situation, they give Reginald Murdoch's wife an $85,000 job, and then the Jake Files thing. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You can open carrying with a concealed, open carrying, and you have a concealed carry. We can take your concealed carry away. They seem to try to correct that this past session, and it did not get signed by the governor, but it went into law without his signature. So there is it's not just some fringe group, is what I'm trying to say. There are now being direct legislative remedies being put to use by some of the good guys to try to clarify to law enforcement, hey, you guys need to enforce the laws on the books.
Right. I mean, and they've actually said that, I know some concealed carry instructors have actually said this, that if you are open carrying and you have a concealed carry license, they will take it from you. And we've had people test that theory out, and they haven't taken it yet, and then they passed that law, and they can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't, they still won't say that you don't have to have it.
Yeah. And that's just and that's what's a shame. They still will not just come out and admit it because, I mean, I don't know. Because of the money. I mean, they might say, well, we don't want it to become the Wild Wild West, but I mean, that's not going to happen. This has been This has been happening now since 2013, and it's been everything's been fine, and there's been more freedom. And do you agree with the statement? An armed society is a polite society, Misty?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
I mean, if you look at the statistics from cities like Chicago, places where guns are banned, I mean, everybody knows these. Chicago's gun laws are insane. I mean, basically you can't have one. And look at their crime rate as compared to, places that don't have those regulations. I mean, the crime rate is a lot lower in places that that realize that their citizens should be or can be armed, need to be armed.
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly, Misty, I appreciate you coming on the program. I appreciate the work that Patriots of Act 746 is doing, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. And we didn't get a chance to cover this, but over at Conduit for Action right now, folks, there is a little bit of a controversy that's brewing between activists like yourself and myself that support Act 746 and the Arkansas Game and Fish. I mean, we talked about the Arkansas State Police, but if you want to, it's not just them. You also have the Arkansas Game and Fish, which is the most, they're the grand poobah of law enforcement that thinks they can do literally whatever they want to anyone at any time, at any moment, whether you're hunting or not. They are completely ignoring the Act 746 freedoms that we have, the Second Amendment freedoms. So that's over at Conduit for Action right now, specifically mentioning Game and Fish. Misty Hampton Graham of Patriots of Act 746, I appreciate you coming on.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Be safe. Folks, we do have to go to break. We're going to be back in just a moment. I may get...
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, real quick, I want to give you a little brief history lesson about what's happened in the past. This whole thing, Asa gets what he wants. Okay, now I don't know if this was. I think it was in the special session April 6th of 2016, but there were several of them in 2016, almost a record. But in one of those joint sessions, I need to go find it. I'm sorry, this is kind of on the fly. But I know that Asa Hutchinson said, and I think he was this one because it was so contentious, he started out by saying, quote, "Come, let us reason together. Come, let us reason together." Now, that is a quote from the Bible, Isaiah chapter 1, actually. And Isaiah 1 starts out, if you go read, the wickedness of Judah. And it's essentially the Lord calling out a sinful nation. Make no mistake, when in Isaiah 1:18 is where you actually get to the verse that Asa quoted while he's standing in front of the entire General Assembly, trying to drum up support for whatever he wanted to call a special session for. "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool. If you're willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be eaten by the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." Is anybody out there, and is anybody out there see the I don't know, that's kind of feel like that's not done intentionally. I kind of the benefit of the doubt in this situation would be I'm writing a speech. It'd be good to open with a Bible verse. You just Bible drill it, just like try to find Psalms. But instead, let's go to the middle of the Bible, because I think I remember that's where Psalms is. It's like, but you don't. You land on Isaiah. I don't know. Look, that's just a blatant speculation, but I just think that, given the context there, I just think that that's the best case scenario. It's like, it'd be nice if I started to speak with the Bible verse. What do I use? I'm going to ignore the verses before that, the verses after it. But Oh man. So Asa, does he get what he wants? I mean, he has so far. He's gotten everything he wants so far. If you know the context there, that he's what you're quoting there. "Come now, let us reason together." That is God saying that in the scripture. Okay. Next, let's go over number 7, the number 7th technique that is used to grow government. I'm going to apply this today. Actually, before I tell you what number 7 is, let me get to the story. Okay, here it is. Arkansas Matters, they've reported on this. Several people have reported on this. This is actually the follow-up story from the original. The city of Hot Springs is now telling the historic Arlington Hotel that they have to make a ton of repairs and stuff, or they're going to shut the place down, essentially. The historic Arlington Hotel. Now, the Arlington Hotel, they are owned by Sky Capital Group. And they are planning, according to these new reports, a $30 million restoration, $30+ million restoration to the historic Arlington Hotel. And it really is a cool-looking building. I don't know if you've ever stayed there before, but it does just kind of, it's just kind of dingy, in a lot of ways. I'm just saying, I think this is how a lot of people feel. CEO is quoted as saying, "I'm passionate about identifying and renovating hotels and restoring them to their full potential." That is Al Rajabi, the CEO of Sky Capital Group. "There is an enormous amount of potential in this wonderful historic property. We are committed to this anchor project for the future of Hot Springs and are moving forward quickly but prudently." patron safety and enjoyment are our highest priorities while we work on improvements. This all is the reason this is back in the news is because there was a letter. It was back at the beginning of August. The chief building employee with the city of Hot Springs says that they got issues that have to be addressed. And they are, kind of threatening. And this comes down to the number 7 technique of growing government. And people are going to say, this is where the rubber meets the road here. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, because I personally think these building inspectors and things like that, in most cases, have lost their minds. And I just don't understand what the problem is with extreme liability for people that don't have safe buildings, that don't have clean buildings. You know what I'm saying? You could simplify some of these building issues and some of these building codes very simple. You can have, if you wanted to rate them, you could have, okay, well, this is, a Category A building, and this is a Category B building, this is a Category C building or below, and you can have them all. But just know that if you're not rated a certain one and something happens, there's no bankruptcy protection for you. There's no, you know what I'm saying? You create the incentives to where Thomas Jefferson, he said, if it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. So you move this away from the government constantly trying to think up new laws and new ways to eliminate risk for society, and you move it on the owner. You move it on the people. You give them the right incentive to have proper safety, because they know if they don't, the law's going to come after them. That's the answer here. The answer is not we need more environmental protection rules, because the Environmental Protection Agency has gotten to a point where it plateaus, and it now can no longer think with the varying industries that it has to regulate. It can no longer think of everything. But you know who can? The person who is on site, who runs the business, who knows, there's not an EPA regulation for this, so I'm going to go ahead and store these barrels here. And then they leaked into the water supply. This happened over in the east. And they leaked into the water supply. People couldn't even wash their clothes in the water. But guess what? Nothing happened to that guy. The EPA now has a regulation saying you can't do what he did. Well, can you imagine if the EPA, because they can't possibly know everything, can you imagine if the EPA just said, hey, if we deem that what you've done isn't safe, then we're actually gonna throw the book at you. If the CEO himself faced jail time for, and I'm not saying a legitimate accident, I'm saying we're talking about willful negligence here, or as James Comey said of Hillary Clinton, extreme carelessness, right? Then you throw the book at him, and we're talking about the person responsible and the guy. You don't think that if that was the case, the CEO would dot every I, cross every T, and things would be a lot safer. But instead, you got the guys at the top that actually, no, they're fine. And then if it's so bad, you've got the bankruptcy protection. Why? If it's bad enough, you say, hey, we're going to let the vultures come and pick the company clean. It's all about the right kind of incentives. And right now, for the last 100 years, it's all about, we got to have more and more and more and more government. Instead of just saying, no, what if we just enforced laws in a very consistent but meaningful way to create the right kind of incentives? Look, all right, I'll give you an example. If there was a law in the books that said if you went 1 mile over the speed limit that you would do 5 years in jail, nobody would go 1 mile over the speed limit. I don't think people would risk that. Now, you'd have some people that would do it maybe eventually, but you understand? Okay, what about 10 years in jail? Automatic, 10 years in jail. Or you say, you go 1 mile over the speed limit, it's an automatic $10,000, $20,000, $25,000, $100,000 fine. You think you're going to go 1 mile over the speed limit? No, everybody's going to be an angel on the road. It's all about incentivizing. And I don't understand why we don't do that, but it's the factor, okay? That's the 7th technique in growing government that we've gone over several times here. It's the factor, the ER factor. You have a legitimate problem. Maybe you got a river, got people polluting in it. Maybe it's flammable. This has actually happened in our history. And so you get the government, they step in, they're going to do something about it, and then they do something about it, and they never go away because now they have to make it safer. I talk about this with the car seat yesterday, right? And it just starts out, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea if babies had car seats? Yeah, okay. Well, wouldn't it be a good idea if fifth graders had to ride in really weird-looking booster seats? Because it's all about, we got to be safer. Never mind the fact that 30,000 people die every year still in car accidents, and the government just can't get it through their heads. They can't figure it out. You're in a 2-ton weapon going 70 miles an hour in the same direction, and, yeah, you're going to have people that die. Nope, safer. EPA, cleaner. And that's how government grows. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I did smack myself in the head just now. Sometimes. Let's just get too worked up about it. Hey, in other news, Bill Clinton is coming to Little Rock. That's right. I know. Everybody's stoked about this. Bill Clinton will attend the 60th anniversary of the Little Rock Central desegregation. Of course. That's right. He's going to be the keynote speaker of the 60th anniversary of Little Rock High School's desegregation. Organizers announced Wednesday the 42nd president will deliver the keynote address September 25th. The Roosevelt Thompson Auditorium. Oh, by the way, since we're removing statues, are there any women out there that feel triggered? Maybe we should remove the Clinton Library, rename it, get rid of it. I'm just saying, if you're a woman out there and you know what Bill Clinton's been accused of, I'm sure the liberal left is going to be more than happy to help you sanitize history, because every time you drive by the Clinton Library and you have to see the Clinton Library and you're like, oh my gosh, Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, I'm a woman and I'm victimized now. Why can't we get rid of the Clinton Library? Or why do we could rename the airport, that sort of thing, right? Anybody? Nobody? I mean, come on. If you got liberals now taking the Roosevelt off of Roosevelt Island in New York, I mean, surely the Clinton Library is next. I mean, we're talking about women here, right? With the pink hats. No? Okay. Well, just a thought. By the way, what happened when Hillary Clinton was last here? Last time Hillary Clinton was in Little Rock, she said this. Remember this?
I got to tell you, it gives me great joy to go around bragging about Bill Clinton and Barack Obama every chance I get.
Let's just take a moment. I'm so glad she lost. Anybody else really happy that this woman lost?
Because
Joe's
each one of them inherited messes from their Republican predecessors.
But she lost, though. Oh, man,
when my husband came into office, he had a lot of work that needed doing.
There's a point here. Listen.
And look, I'm going to brag on Arkansas again.
Brag on Arkansas again.
I'm going to brag on Arkansas again.
Yeah, brag
because I was just in Louisiana.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I love Louisiana. It's a wonderful state.
That's because you were hoping to get the
electoral votes. But when you
votes.
compare the way the politicians in Louisiana responded to increasing access to Medicaid.
Oh, you mean like Arkansas
and
did.
If you compare it to what the politicians here in Arkansas did, it is no comparison at all. This state, in a bipartisan agreement, decided to expand access to Medicaid.
Bipartisan.
And
Hillary Clinton giving it praise. Asa Hutchinson continuing it with Arkansas words.
250,000 people in Arkansas got access to coverage.
That number is now 330,000 people, because nothing like a liberal measuring the success of a government program by judging it on the ability to give away something for free. Because that's what they do. Oh, the government's accomplished its goals as long as we are able to successfully give away something for free, which is the easiest thing that you can ever do, is give away free stuff to people. Hillary Clinton, everybody, last time she was in Little Rock, to my knowledge, she praised Arkansas's establishment, Republican, progressive, microwave communists for creating a brand new welfare program, the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history, and the Republicans in leadership to this day tell you it was the right thing to do. I'll give you an example, because they would agree with Hillary Clinton here.
That's one of the reasons why the uninsured rate
Listen.
here in Arkansas was cut nearly in half.
They gave away a free
and it
product.
makes perfect sense. Fewer people
Listen.
with insurance,
Okay.
without insurance, leads to fewer visits to emergency rooms,
And that's wrong because emergency room visits are the same.
leads to more prevention, leads to lower costs.
Lower costs?
And healthier people.
Healthier people?
Look at this. Arkansas has already saved
Listen.
more than $30 million last year alone.
Arkansas saved $30 million. What she's referring to is uncompensated care. $30 million that we saved according to the fuzzy hospital math, which is a PHP glossary term, which is a deceptive way of calculating their losses. But $30 million, oh my goodness, what a lot of money. Well, how much does the total program cost? Over $2 billion a year. That's right, $2 billion with a B. You know, $1 billion being $27,000 a day for 100 years spent with money at the end of the 100 years left over. Yeah, $27,000 a day, and we're talking about a $2 billion program a year to save hospitals a combined total of $30 million. Ooh, come on. That only makes sense in the mind of establishment Arkansas Republicans and Hillary Clinton. Back in just a moment.
This is for all you big government establishment Republicans out there. Hope you're listening. I keep a close watch on these votes of mine. I keep my finger in the wind all the time. I vote big government, and you will pay with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, there's always an excuse not to shrink government. It's much easier just to toe that line. I find it very easy to be rhino blue. I find I'm not alone when failing to come through. Yes, big government, I'm a fool for you. 'Cause every time I toe that line. Legislative sleight of hand would be an accurate description. Or you could just say, they can't quit towing that party line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll vote big government both day and night. And act like I'm shocked when it all comes to light. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, the phrase toe the line is the equivalent of toe the mark, both of which mean to conform to a rule or standard. You could also call it the status quo. Tax and spend, I'm always on your side. I love writing government checks that I cannot hide. Buying people's votes always turns the tide. 'Cause every time I toe the line. The Oxford Dictionary word histories. The idiom toe the line from an athletics analogy originated in the early 19th century. I hope you don't watch these votes of mine. Hope you don't see through the lies and slime. 'Cause I plan on spending with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, toeing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress.
PHP Parody.
I'm not sure when I wrote that Johnny Cash parody there, but Joe, you make an interesting point. One of the lyrics is one of the lines: "Writing government checks that I cannot hide." Ouch! I mean that is crazy. That directly applies to what Jake Files is caught up in right now. The beginning of the program, we did tell you the news that had just broke by KRK, and they said that David Whitaker, the House Minority Leader, has written a letter to Speaker Jeremy Gillum asking Jeremy Gillum for instructions on how to impeach Senator Jake Files. That is now what has occurred. Now, this letter's reasonable. We talked about this last hour, but the reason they're asking, of course it's reasonable, but they're asking this because there's new impeachment rules. Now, we'll see, I mean, if Jeremy Gillum responds in an official capacity. My prediction is still, I think he might eventually respond, but Jake Files will have resigned by the time he gets around to responding. But it'll have secured, the absence of a special election. They're just doing everything they can to avoid a special election, whatever they can do. What else do we have here? So the President Clinton coming to Arkansas for the desegregation anniversary. The Arlington is being victimized of the factor. Let's see, what else do we have here? I can't believe this, but we had, okay, let's go back here. Let's go back here to our 7 points. We focused a lot on the factor. Legitimate problem exists on some level. Motivation to eliminate risk from the government steps in. Our examples, we went over them. EPA started in the 70s, pollution going on, litter on the streets, but then they made America the cleanest place on the planet for an industrialized country, and it wasn't good enough. You look at Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We need to make the roads safer, so we have enhanced DWI laws, enhanced penalties, mandatory sentencing. But then people still drive drunk. It's discouraged it. But there's still people that are saying, I'll drive drunk. So what's the next step? Well, we need to make it safer regardless of these dumb decisions. And so in Florida, they've drawn people's blood forcibly, or they'll have a judge with at the checkpoints to just make you have to draw your blood, even if you refuse the breathalyzer. Now that's tyranny. That's not even soft tyranny. That is just flat out wrong. That's where we are. But let's take it for number one. The number one reason government grows, it's called the matching principle. That is when a larger government gives a smaller government their money back in exchange for that smaller government matching a percentage of the money they're getting back. Oftentimes, the government has to raise taxes to do it, or many times the government will raise taxes eventually if they have the money on hand, because the federal dollars go away eventually and they want to keep the program, and so eventually they do have to raise taxes. That is the number one reason government grows in our society today, or it's number one on our list, the matching principle. Number two is false proof. I want you guys I've gone over these a lot. I want you to remember them. Number two is false proof. It's when the politicians try to prove what the people want so that the government has to step in and provide it. The mainstream media does this all the time today, but politicians do that as well. I remember when Governor Asa Hutchinson decided to claim that ending the private option would be, quote, unbiblical. That's an example of false proof, but again, trying to use something that many of us consider an authority in our life to do it. But you'll hear things like, it's what the people want, when in reality, it's not what the people want. The internet sales tax, false proof. The business for small businesses, it's what the small businesses want. Now, some small businesses do because they haven't thought the arguments through. They actually think they're going to be helped by this, but they won't. The biggest example of this today is single-payer health care. Medicare for all, it's what the people want. No, it isn't. The number three way that government grows, a technique, is they disguise what they're trying to do, or they lie. I mean, it's a form of deception, right? It's a form of deception. In this past election, Governor Hutchinson went around for a constitutional amendment, and he said it was about jobs, when in reality it was about debt. Because if you didn't read the fine print, you didn't know that Arkansas was increasing the amount of debt it could go into infinitely, no limit. It went from being capped at 5% to being the cap was completely removed. There is no limit to how much we can go into debt to become the next Puerto Rico of America. Then, of course, pain point politics, the number four technique. That's an easy one. Well, if we end the program, That actually may be more towards the biblical comment. If we end the program, babies will die. Bridges will collapse, as Dan Douglas says. Dying in highway accidents. Dirtier air, dirtier water. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. Buy the Liberty Machine t-shirt you see on your screen, paulharrell.com. Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday.